Hey everybody, welcome to Cincinnati Real Producers Podcast, powered by Nextdoor Photos. I'm Patrick Braddick, owner and publisher of Cincinnati Real Producers.
And I'm Daniel Ziegler, owner of Nextdoor Photos. Every week, we're getting to know Cincinnati's top realtors.
Our goal is to elevate and inspire the real estate community throughout greater Cincinnati.
Today, we have Scott Oyler of Oyler Hines, brokered by Coldwell Banker Realty. He started his real estate career selling apartment communities at CBRE in 2003 and switched to residential real estate in 2010. Scott's team is ranked as the #1 real estate team in Cincinnati, #4 in the state of Ohio, and a top 10 team at Coldwell Banker in the entire U.S. Additionally, Scott was named Rookie of the Year in his first year selling residential real estate at Coldwell Banker. He was also awarded the prestigious Westshell Jr. Award for demonstrating superior service to clients, office leadership and professional behavior and support, vision, integrity, and professionalism. In 2022 alone, Scott's team production was 391 units and over $203 million in sales volume. Welcome to the show, Scott Oyler.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me here.
Scott.
Oh man.
My gosh. I know we gotta throw the numbers out there for credibility, but goodness, man. You guys are staying busy.
We're busy, but it's a lot of good people, that make that all happen. It's funny. I had breakfast this morning with Heather, who Patrick, I know you've met.
Yeah.
We were going back. She's been with me for over 12 years, and when we were paying our bill out at the end, we go to this coffee shop right by our office. This is the real brains behind the operation, is Heather, right? So, awesome. But no, a lot of good people that are behind, those numbers. So very fortunate to have a great team.
All right. Well, Scott, we would love to get to know a little bit more about you. So take us back to before you even got into real estate. You can talk us through your story, maybe where you went to school, things like that, where you met your wife. Tell us a little bit about your family. Just take us back.
Yeah. So I'm a West Sider, born and raised on the West Side. I married an East Sider, right? So I couldn't get her back over to the West Side. So
Did you want to go to the West Side?
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
You got to be careful who's listening.
I know, exactly. But yeah, I grew up West Side of Cincinnati, Oak Hills High School. That's a total Cincinnati answer right there, right? What high school? And went to University of Cincinnati. Die-hard Bearcat. I had the best experience could ever imagine at UC. And I think one of the reasons is because of my involvement at UC. I think it's real easy when you go to the University of Cincinnati, if you're from Cincinnati, to just kind of hang with your high school crew. And
Sure.
So I got really involved with at UC. So it was just a phenomenal experience for me. Met a lot of great people, a lot of awesome relationships, one of which is my wife today. So Kristen and I, we met in college. Dated for, she would say, like 8 years before we got married. I have it calculated more like 6, but to her it's 8. So we were both Bearcats. And then we have twins, Isabel and Gabrielle, Izzy and Gabby, that just turned 13. So we're heading into those teenage years. And it is like, no matter what anybody says, right? Everybody's like, oh, it goes by so fast. If one more person tells me that, when the kids were born, and you're like, now you're like, wow, it is true.
Now you're
like,
telling
it's
people
just,
that.
I can't believe that they're 13, and it is flown by. So we're super blessed to have those girls, and and we're in Madeira. So my wife was an Anderson girl, and so we planted roots in Madeira. It's been a great spot for us.
That's great. I speaking of your family, I follow you on social media and everything like that. And I love you made a post a few years ago that was really quite nice, because your business has obviously exploded, but I think you mentioned something on social media about really trying to keep your personal account personal. and revolving it around your family and your hobbies and stuff like that. And your business account's all about the business. Like, you're never going to see me throwing all of our listings up on my personal account and stuff like that. And I remember when I started following you, we've been friends for a few years now. I really enjoyed the cooking class that you and your daughter did.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that's pretty cool, man. And I think a lot of people enjoyed that.
We got to bring that back.
We got to bring it back,
I
man.
know. I know.
There's a high demand for that.
Yeah, so I think that started around COVID.
Yeah.
When I did that with my daughter Izzy, and yeah, I try to keep business and personal a little bit separate. I think it would be boring if I just put every listing up and be like, oh, I don't want to follow this guy, right? Like it would just. But there is a balance, right? Because sometimes your clients want.
Yeah, sometimes you need to.
You're like, hey, so there's certain listings, certain real estate things we'll feature, but I try to keep it mostly about family and life. And but yeah, it's awesome that you brought that up with the cookie show, because people will bring that up. And my daughter loves to cook. She's got a funny personality. It's great on camera. And it just started out by just shooting videos. We'd edit them up, and she loved it, and how many people saw it, and all that stuff, and so we had a lot of fun with it.
A funny guy too, so it's like some of the reactions in it were great, and my wife and I would literally be like, "Hey, did you see the video this week?" I was like, "Yeah, it's awesome."
I'm gonna tell her that you brought this up, because I dropped the ball on it.
Never too old to be on a cooking show.
We have to bring that back.
That's awesome.
We have to bring that back.
Yeah, I appreciated it. It was great. So 2 girls, Madeira, UC, man. I'm a UC grad. Love the Bearcats.
There we go.
Man.
All Bearcats. It's a little rough after last
I remember,
weekend.
yeah.
Could redeem ourselves this weekend. We'll see. Oklahoma. Big
Miami,
noon kickoff.
Man. Kudos to them.
Yeah.
They
wanted it more. They came out hungry. So
this will be an interesting weekend. But for all of our listeners, it's the prequel to UC Oklahoma. Oklahoma's playing pretty darn good football too.
Yeah.
So
hopefully we can surprise
nothing
people.
Nothing we can't do. So but with that said, your love for UC, what kind of involvement did you have with the Bearcats? And I know that as an alumni, you're incredibly involved. And it's been pretty cool. Scott's offered me tickets every once in a while, and every single time I'm not available, and I'm like, don't stop asking.
There will be plenty of opportunities for sure.
No, but it's I cater you to the one of the best, most loyal Bearcat fans out there. How did that passion and that love kind of start for you?
It really started with my grandfather.
Really?
He would take me to games. Football, basketball, back when barely anybody would be at the football games.
Gino Gaduli?
And back then, even going way back. So we'd go to games. It was just family bonding, and and then when I got to UC, I've got a really great relationship with my father. He has obviously he was in real estate as well. My grandfather was.
I was
going
to say we could go down a whole
third generation,
whole other episode with that. Yeah,
and these are like my heroes, right? And but I just remember my dad always kind of taught me you're only going to get out of something what you put into it, and I feel like that epitomizes my college experience at UC. It's easy if you're not gonna have the same experience if you just go there, do the classes, come home, right? If you get involved, and that's what I did. I just jumped in, got involved with my fraternity. That was the first thing. Had different leadership positions within the fraternity. Got involved with interfraternity council, that kind of oversees the fraternities, and various other organizations and groups. And those are my closest friends.
That's awesome.
That even when we talk about business or anything like that, we have a lot of those conversations. That group remains super, super tight. And so it just, for me, was home.
That's awesome.
I lived in Clifton. I was in the 5-year program. I always tell people there was co-op in there. There was co-op in there. But that experience was just amazing for me, and so it just kind of fueled my passion even more, right? So you kind of grew up, you had that base or that foundation,
Yeah.
and then when you have a great experience there, but once again, I think it was from the direction of my father just saying, hey, we're here, we live in Cincinnati, but you're not coming home, every weekend or every day. You need to
Sink or
pave your
swim
way.
type of thing.
Yeah. So they were always welcoming. Don't get me wrong. I would drop piles of laundry off, once a month or something like that, or stop back home every once in a while. But it was, hey, if you were really going to get, the true college experience, you gotta, you have to, once again, you're only going to get out of anything what you put into it. Right. And so that was
awesome.
big thing for me, and one of the things I learned from him.
So what are you a bigger fan of, UC football or UC basketball?
Oh, that's a tough question. I would say,
Because you're around the Huggy era too.
So
I've never experienced that sort of
diehard basketball. I mean, obviously basketball is kind of the legacy sport, so to speak, right? A couple of national championships. It wasn't really until Mark D'Antonio came, Minner laid a little bit of a foundation, then Mark D'Antonio came in, and that we really started to have something, right? That football was starting to get there when we got to the Big East. That's when football really changed. And I think I may have to say football.
Really?
I've our buddies, we started a big tailgate. We bought this tailgate trailer we had custom made out in Wheeling, West Virginia. And the timing was perfect. So I used to tailgate, have this little, little mini grill and a tent and all that stuff, and invite people. And then it started getting bigger and bigger, and then raised some money with some buddies. I said, look, I'll take care of the tailgate. I want this tailgate trailer. Did a little research, picked this thing up in Wheeling, West Virginia, and our tailgates exploded. I mean, the timing was perfect. It was Brian Kelly's first year, right? So, and we know the run that we had right then. And so we would have a couple hundred people at our tailgates. That game when we beat Pitt at Pitt, that was like a noon or 1 o'clock kickoff. We hauled 6 kegs in our tailgate trailer, and that's how many people we had at our tailgate.
My gosh.
They were
At
toast.
Pitt.
They were toast at an away game.
Golly.
Before. And so it was a lot of fun, and what I met so many people through it, and connections. Like there's all these things, like you do these things because it's fun, you're passionate about it, and then the byproduct is like, you meet other people, and that's what I really enjoy, is connecting with other folks.
Sure.
And so we'd have these big we had a website, here's where we would, what lot we would be in, and a following. It was weird. I started having like Bush's Baked Beans reaching out to me and asking like, hey, we'll pay you money if we can set up next to your tailgate and do a demonstration. We had a hell of a good dip, or it was Dean's dip, or it was one of the dips, would send me like like one of those styrofoam coolers, like a freezer pack with stuff to hand out, with hats and stuff like that. It was like, holy cow. And that's when I started to realize, the power of like we had like a blogger site, and that's how people were finding us. And believe it or not, there is a magazine called Tailgater Monthly Magazine. There may only be about 5 or 10 monthly subscribers. I don't know if it's still around today. But we were on the cover of Tailgater Monthly Magazine as Tailgaters of the Year.
That's fantastic.
I know. That's probably that's the
Who cares
most
about numbers?
That's the most prestigious award right there. And so we just had so much fun with it. And then kids came along, activities, weekends, and so the tailgate trailer is still around. The tailgate's still, but there's another guy that kind of gets it set up, and we kind of pass the torch. It's harder for me to get there. We used to get there 4 or 5 hours before kickoff, but with the stage that a lot of our buddies that started this with our kids where they're at. It's hard to get there so early. So, we just still try to get there a few hours before kickoff and have a good time. But yeah,
little cigar, a little beer, and then walk in.
Yeah, cigar, beer, a couple things to eat.
Get in there and go. Man.
But it's fun. And what I love about football season, I think the reason why I love football, I think more than basketball, it's not the teams necessarily. Basketball, you're there, you watch the game, and you leave.
Yeah.
Football, it's an event.
Yep.
And all the people that you get to see at the football games, that's why I think I love it more. It's the atmosphere. It's the tailgating before. I see, I was talking to the other day, a friend of mine, Jackie. It's like, hey, it's football season. We get to see you guys, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like folks that you're connected with, but you don't see them all the time.
6 months. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it's like football season. You start to see people you went to school with and things like that you're friends with, but life gets crazy, and it's this thing that brings everybody back and together and things like that. And so I think that's
you never missed a beat.
Exactly 100%. And I think that's why I like probably.
Well, I feel like football. I say this from the shameless plug of marketing. Like, real estate is so relational that the number one marketing tool that an agent can have is just being social. Being in front of other people. People join people. They don't join Coldwell Banker or Sipsy Klein. They join Scott Oyler or, Laura Wogan or whoever, whoever it is. So it's like I have a know, like, and trust of Scott, so I want to work with him, and I think that's a powerful tool too, not to be like you're going to this to grow your business, but organically you kind of are.
Well, I think that's what's fun is when you do something that you love and have a lot of fun with, that makes those connections, and you're not even trying, right? Because it's what you love and you enjoy to do. And we talk about that with agents on our team. It's like, oh yeah, well, maybe I should volunteer here and I may meet some people. Yeah, that's great. But are you passionate about what you're volunteering for? Because if you're not, if the only reason you're going to volunteer for that is to try to connect with people, people are going to see that real quick, right? Volunteer for something you're passionate about. Get involved with something you're passionate about. Get something involved where it's fun for you, right? And the natural byproduct is, you will connect with other people, but you have to do it for the right reasons. If it's just purely for business reasons, people see right through that right away, and if you can mix fun, what you enjoy, and there's a byproduct of connecting people, that's a total win-win.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Right.
So I think part of our transition with this podcast is obviously we want to know about you, but really what has motivated you to get to the place that you are now? Like, what is kind of your why into this industry and your personal life?
Yeah, so it's interesting. My journey to get into real estate was very interesting, right? I mentioned my grandfather. I'm third generation. My grandfather had a company that was very successful, that was bought by Coldwell Banker in the early 80s, and then my dad was in management. He managed the Coldwell Banker office on the west side. And I didn't get into residential real estate, not because I didn't want to. I think it was more my ego wouldn't let me. Because, right or wrong, this is what my grandfather did. It's what my dad did. I want to build my own thing. I want to pave my own way. I don't want anyone to be like, oh, well, his grandfather and his dad, of course, right? That's, and I think I let that bother me a little bit.
Sure.
So I liked real estate when I was at UC. I was in marketing and real estate. I have a phenomenal real estate program, and it's really it's more focused on commercial real estate, very little residential, right? So everything from how to analyze deals from a development standpoint, and so I did real estate brokerage at CB Richard Ellis. I've sold apartment communities, worked with a guy, Dave Lockard, who I still talk to all the time to this day. He was one of those guys that I learned so much from. He's kind of like maybe like a little bit of a Bob Huggins, where it's like at the time you're like, I don't know if I like this guy, but when I look at the influence he had on me and the lessons he taught me and some of the tough love he taught me, I'm like, that guy really cared about me, though, right? Like, he really cared whether I didn't like some of the things or not, right? And so worked with this guy, Dave, a phenomenal person, just a great human being. And we were selling apartment communities. I was the junior guy on the team, and I think I'm Mr. Hotshot, big man on campus, graduated from UC, think I got everything figured out in the world. And he quickly humbled me and let me realize I don't. And so start on this journey, and he would sell, the sexy apartment communities, and he really kind of made me learn, the basics of the business before I got out there. And we were doing great. We were selling a lot in apartment communities, and in commercial real estate, it takes a little while before you really start hitting your stride. And so I graduated in 2003, made very little money the first couple years. Year 3, you're like, all right, right? And that's kind of the journey of like any type of commission. Your friends have these steady salary jobs, and they're starting up here, and you're here. But then eventually, you start to grow your business. There's more upside potential, and that's what I really liked. I loved entrepreneurship, and I felt like, it's very entrepreneurial. So things are going really, really well, and then the second half of 2008 hits. I had the best first half of the year in 2008, but the second half, things dropped. We went 13 months without a paycheck. 13 months without closing a deal. So we were selling, $100+ million a year in apartments, and went to zero in 13 months. And one of the things that I mentioned about Dave, that would bother me sometimes, he would tell me all the time. He'd say, hey, man, it's not always going to be like this. Make sure you're putting money away. Make sure you're tucking it away. Don't spend it all. We've been on a good run. Those are the things where, like, at the time were annoying.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, he's not my dad. Why is he telling me? But those are all things that, like, if he wasn't in my ear doing that, I would not have been able to survive, right? Because I did take his advice, wasn't spending it all, to be able to survive 13 months without a paycheck. And so I'm on this journey, and meanwhile, my wife and I are trying to have kids, and we are going through a lot of infertility issues. We did IVF 7 times, failed 7 times. So I look at my bank account, and I'm like, okay. My wife's in social work. So she's got like the biggest heart in the world, help anybody out. So that was her passion. She was in social work, but that doesn't always pay the best either, right?
Sure.
And I look at our bank account, and I'm like, I don't know if I can survive this, right?
Yeah.
It's dwindling. And so I had went to Dave, and I said, Dave, I don't think I can survive through this. And so I was looking at other jobs, commercial lending at U.S. Bank. They weren't really lending a lot of money at that time.
Right.
So because I'm fast forwarding here, we're into like 2010 now, right? Because of that time of no deals. So selling office furniture, steel case office furniture for Loth, and I remember I was going to do steel case office furniture for Loth. The connection I had from UC got me set up there, and I remember my wife looking at me and saying, well, you don't seem real excited about this. And I'm like, well, Chris connected me. He's helping me out, and it's a great job, but no, I'm not real excited. It doesn't fuel me, doesn't passion me. She's like, well, what does? I was like, I really like real estate. And we started to have this conversation, and I said, I think I could take what I learned on the commercial side and I can go into residential. I've got a big network from growing up in Cincinnati, going to UC, and I feel like I can take what I learned on the commercial side and do well in residential. The risk was, as we all know, it's 100% commission.
Sure.
And my wife said, hey, I believe in you if that's what you want to do, and I will support you in that. And so I talked to my dad and said, hey, I think I may want to do residential. And he was like, I don't know, son. This may not be the best time. Because you think about it, in 2010, residential market wasn't great either.
Right.
You know, commercial market was way worse, but residential market was still not great.
Yeah.
I said, I don't know that's a good idea, but I'll connect you with Joe, who was the Coldwell Banker president. I had multiple conversations with Joe. Joe's kind of convincing me to get into the business. You could do this. You know, my dad, I think, just wanted to make sure that, you know, we would be okay, right?
Well, I feel like setting the right expectation.
Yeah.
You know? Like, it's not an easy market.
No.
So.
And so I ended up getting into residential real estate. We cashed out all of our savings, 401k, everything. 6 months to live. Oh, and by the way, that was...
You're pregnant.
Well, I was 6 weeks before... I switched over 6 weeks before the twins were born.
Oh, wow.
So
My
I
gosh.
started 6 weeks before the twins were born. There was no plan B. It had to work. We had to figure it out.
Backs against the wall.
So for your wife to say, I believe you can do this, and to be that supportive in that moment, that's a big deal.
It is. It's a very big deal. And if Kristen is my biggest cheerleader, you know, if you know, she posts more of our listings on her personal Facebook than I do. Like, she is my biggest cheerleader, and she believed in me. Without her giving me that confidence to do it and her trust. Now, don't get me wrong, there were some parameters.
Yeah.
Okay, you know, we've got like 6 months, you know, to do it, but we're gonna have to reevaluate. But she believed in me, and if she didn't, she could have easily said, no, I know that job isn't gonna make you feel real excited, but that's the safe thing, and you need to go do that for your family. So really, you know, super supportive. And so when you ask what's your why, it's family.
That's
to make
awesome.
sure that we can, you know, provide and give all the things to the family that I was fortunate enough, you know, to have.
That's awesome.
But our back was up against the wall, and our story to even have kids was, you know, I mean, that's a topic for a whole nother day.
Yeah.
But I mean, we went through so many different things just to have our twins, and we even actually had a surrogate, a gestational carrier.
Wow.
You know, so a lot of resources and a lot of stress and emotion and everything through that whole process. And you know, I look back and I remember, you know, that time, you know, you're like in this. Feel like you're in this dark tunnel, and you're like, okay, where I see this little glimmer of light, and I need to just keep moving towards that way.
So now we're talking 2012, 2013, or is that 2010 stuff?
That was 2010. So all that happened 2010.
So your girls were born in 2010. You're in residential
8,
real
9,
estate.
10. August 9th of 2010. Easy date to remember. And so yeah, they were born. And I'll be the first to admit, you know, Patrick, we talk a lot about you before you're like, oh, I see you out on the boat with the kids.
Yeah.
And out on the weekend. And
Spending time with the family.
spend time with the family. You know, it wasn't like that
Yeah.
starting out the business. I would
Yeah.
be the first to admit I was not around very much in the beginning.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I have people all the time that say, hey, I want to get into real estate. I like it because it's got a super flexible schedule and, you know, all these things. I'm like, okay, you know, how much business do you want to do? What are your goals? Because I think we all know that you're kind of on call,
Yeah.
you know, all the time.
Yeah.
And if you want to be very successful, it takes time to build, you know, that business.
Sure.
So I wasn't around, you know, for those first few years. I wish I could get those years back. I can't, but I'm trying to make up for it now. But there was definitely some sacrifice, at the beginning, and once again, so I'm fortunate to have a very supportive wife. But getting the business started was, just every day was belly to belly. I mean, that was my mission. Was I had coffee with someone in the morning. Sometimes I'd schedule them back to back. Lunch with someone, and then a beer in the afternoon. And what the biggest thing what I found out is people genuinely want to help other people, right? People genuinely want to help other people. People are afraid to ask sometimes, right? So
sense of pride, I guess.
Yeah. And so I would just set up these coffee meetings or lunch. Hey, Patrick, let's just say we're buddies from college. Hey, Patrick, how you doing, man? Would love to catch up, catch a cup of coffee. Haven't chatted in a long time, or a beer, lunch. Let's connect.
Yeah.
What's the first thing you're going to say when we go to lunch or coffee? You're going to say, like, hey, what have you been up to?
Yeah, what have you been doing? Yeah.
What have you been up to, right?
Yeah. Actually, I started a new real estate company.
Believe it or not, I'm so excited. I just started at Coldwell Banker, and I'm excited to sell real estate. And, here's all the things I'm going to do, because people genuinely want to know. And it's such an easy conversation. I think the biggest thing, like, agents get into the business and they write letters or send an email out. Boom, I'm a realtor. Now you should work with me.
Right.
No, you got to get belly to belly. People got to put their eyeballs on you, right?
Yeah.
There's a ton of realtors out there. They've got a lot of relationships, a lot of friendships, So all you're trying to do is get belly to belly and let them know this is what you do in a genuine way, right? And talk to them and have those conversations. And that was it. Like, that is over and over and over every single day. I wanted to get belly to belly with as many people as possible. And that's what I enjoyed doing, right? Like, some people, that strategy may not work. One of the most beautiful things about real estate is there are so many different ways to be successful, right? There are, like, the guerrilla marketing folks who crush it that way. There's the people who can sit behind a phone and call for sale by owners and expireds. For me, I enjoyed, where I was comfortable is connecting with people, because that's what I enjoyed doing, and being kind of a connector, right? And that's what's awesome about our business. I think it's so hard for sometimes agents who, they're told they have to do this. They go to a conference, or they're, in order to be successful, I got to do what this agent's doing, or that. Well, that may not fit you. Right. What fits you and what's going to make you successful, what made me successful, isn't what's going to make you necessarily successful, right? And you got to find your own path. But that's what's beautiful. There's so many different ways, and why people are like, why do you share what you do? Because I'm like, because that may work for some people, it may not work for everybody, and that's fine, and that's okay.
That reminds me of a story Scott told me once about getting out there with people and trying to promote his business and everything. And he's like, yeah, one of my good friends, Jeff Reeder, I would send him flyers every month on, I'm starting a real estate business. He's like, Scott, stop sending me this, man. My mom is an agent.
My mom's an agent. You really think I'm going to use you? I'm like, well, just in case.
Yeah. Just top of mind.
Just,
he told me that, man. I was cracking up.
Oh, it was so funny. He's like, dude, you can remove me from your mailing list, right? I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That was classic.
But it was so good.
Oh, man.
Well, I'm curious. So starting out there, I mean, you're getting belly to belly with all these people you just started out, and now you're leading the number one team in Cincinnati. Yeah. So what happened in that gap of, 10, 12 years?
So the business started growing, and I wanted to make sure that everyone had great service, right? And the best hire I ever made, and I'm super lucky. No one. I didn't get it here alone. I didn't do it myself. I didn't, I had a lot of influence from my dad. He's coached a lot of top agents. And I remember kind of like, okay, first year I got up close to like 30 units that first year. And he's like, you need to hire someone. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Dad. I'm like, with a sinking ship, I'm actually putting money in my pocket. You think I could really hire someone right now? You're not gonna be able to do any more business, especially if you want to see your kids or, anything like that. So hired Heather, who came on board. She's still with me today.
Was she a realtor when you hired her?
No. She she was overqualified for the job. It was like a Jerry Maguire speech. She was like way overqualified for the job. And she got out of the workforce, for a few years as her kids were young, and as her youngest was going to kindergarten or first grade, she was trying to get back into the workforce. And I was like, I can only pay you this. Yeah. I can only give you 20 hours, a week, but we're going to build something special, and
who's with me?
Who's with me?
Yeah.
You coming? Let's go.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget. It was at the Echo coffee shop, and I think she was kind of like, wait a minute, because like we met, and I'm like, okay, you ready? You're like, let's go.
Yeah.
I think she was like, well, don't you want to like think about it? I thought this was like an interview. I don't even know if I want to do that,
Yeah.
So she started, and that helped me do what I was good at, was meet with people, connect with people. I sucked at the paperwork,
The back end,
and the details. Like, I'm a little ADD. I know where my strengths are, I know where my weaknesses are, and she helped my weaknesses so much.
Awesome.
And so it allowed me to focus on what I did best, which was connecting with people and being out there. And she loved kind of doing the back office stuff. So from there we had more leads that are coming in, more connections and things like that. And I think one of the biggest myths, like, I did not get into business to say, hey, I'm gonna have a large team. That wasn't the plan. It was just like, I just want to get into real estate to survive, so my family can eat and have vacation and do those things. But it started to take off, and so you start adding on another agent. And I think one of the greatest myths in real estate is that people only want to work with you, right? So I realized that what people really want is really good service, right? And if I'm taking on too many people at one time, what's going to happen? I mean, we hear it all the time with like contractors. Like, we do it all the time with contractors we recommend. Oh my gosh, this person's great. It's great. And all of a sudden, like, they're not calling me back. You didn't show up. You didn't, right? Because they took on too much. Sure. So you have to hire the right people and teach them everything that you know in your way of doing business. And people are okay as long as they have really good service. And you have to trust they can give good service. And we failed. We learned a lot. I think that's one of the things we were willing to try things. And, oh my gosh, that was bad. Let's not do that again. But hey, we tried it, and we learned from it, right? And but I would say the number one reason where we are today is the people on the team. That's what we started out, at the beginning. We haven't had a lot of turnover from people that have been with us for many, many years. And don't get me wrong, we're like everybody, you're going to have some, but
it's going to happen in business.
It's going to happen. But when you have the right people in place, like, they make the magic happen. You know what I mean? And sometimes it's me. Like, I shouldn't be in this chair right now. You'd probably gain more insights and stuff if Heather was in this seat, if Becky was in the seat, if Laura was in this seat.
Yeah.
You know, it's just because I started the team. These people that you bring on, I want people who are smarter than me. I want people. I'm you know, Heather and I had this conversation this morning in our breakfast. You know, like I like that. I'll be like, hey, I think this, and I like that she'll be like, no, that's stupid.
Yeah.
You know,
Gives it
like
to you real.
reel me in. You know, a little bit because I have a lot of stupid ideas. Right.
Yeah, I think that's innovative though too. Like, I don't know. I also think that there's a lot of people in business have a hard time finding that unicorn, and it seems like Heather might have been that unicorn. You know, like, you know, a lot of people say don't look for a unicorn to hire. If one falls in your lap, then so be it. But hire 4 people that can act as a unicorn. So this is your specific job. This is your specific job. This is your specific job. If so happens somebody comes along, then great, but don't expect them to stay forever. And I think there's a testament to your culture that Heather's been around for 12 years. And you know, Laura loves what you do, and you love what Laura does, and Bryce and everybody else. And then Oyler Hines just morphed into something that nobody else is doing in this city. And it's incredible, you know? So I don't know. I think there's a testament to character and the style of business in which you guys present yourself is pretty second to none. And I think the proof's in the pudding too. So it's pretty cool to see, man.
Well, I appreciate that, and like I said, it's really it's the people. Mike, you know, we didn't even get to that part. You know,
I can't wait. We're gonna interview Mike down the road.
Yeah,
he's just as qualified as anybody else that we interview.
Mike's the best business partner you could ever meet. I mean, the guy is the nicest guy you'll ever meet. So when funny story, we merged our businesses 2 years ago. We celebrated our 2-year anniversary.
That's awesome.
And what's great is Mike and I we had similar style, mindset. We would share ideas. He'd go to a conference and share ideas. I'd go to a conference, share ideas. We didn't really compete a whole lot because his business was mostly new construction.
Yeah.
Working with custom home builders, he did take a couple development clients from us, but we'll let that pass. No, I'm just joking, because they were better suited, right?
Yeah, right.
Like, because they that's what they did was new construction.
Yeah.
But we shared a lot of ideas, and originally we were just going to share back office, right? Like, hey, I'm doing my thing, he's doing his thing with our teams, and we were just going to share some back office. And the more and more we started talking about it, we're like, why don't we just merge together? The businesses can complement each other. We kind of like dated, for lack of a better word, for a while. We were tinkering and experimenting. So, he would say, gosh, we're great with people that want to build. But then sometimes we may lose not getting their listing. They may, because they're the building experts, they'd want to work with them on the build side, but then they may not get their listing. And so we were tinkering and toying, and he would say, hey, I'd like to introduce you to Scott. He's head of our resale group, and, that person probably would have hired another agent, but he was making those intros. And then sometimes you have folks who, think they want new construction, but really they end up on the resale side of things, and they felt like they were losing some of that business. On our end, it's the same way. We had some people who, we had great relationships, but we weren't on the new construction side, so we would miss out on some projects and things like that. Ones that we'd worked with people before that we thought we did a great job, and they'd say, yeah, but that Mike Hines guy, that's his thing, right? And so we're like, you know what? We tinkered and toyed. We did a lot of testing too, which at the time we were like, why are we doing this? But it was very, very smart to make sure we were compatible, it'd work. We want to make sure this would be a long-term, thing. And Mike and I complement each other very much. Right. I'm probably a little more loosey-goosey. Mike's much more buttoned up, process-oriented. And so we balance each other a lot, and I couldn't ask for a better business partner. Just I mean, you guys know he's like the nicest
Yeah,
guy in
he
the
really
world.
is. Dang, Mike.
You know,
So nice.
he is.
But I also think that it's, from the outsider looking in, it was genius. You know, like, why don't we offer more of a one-stop shop for any type of buyer? You know, it's like, oh, you're resale, and it's like, well, I thought about new construction. Oh, great, let's have that conversation. You know, like, we have the experts in all fields to facilitate that. You know, and I think that's genius.
And that's what we try to do. Is everyone has their specialty, you know, in our office with our group, you know, so people have that specialized service, you know, and I can look, you know, my best friend in the eye, and I can say, Laura Wogan is a better buyer's agent than me. Bryce Allen is a better buyer's agent than me, because that's what they focus on. That's what they're doing, you know, and that's what we're doing. In this market with low inventory, you need someone aggressively helping you find a home, and that, you know, it's funny. I don't know if I should go on record saying it. I had someone that I worked with on the buy side today. There was a special connection that I felt like I needed to do, and I probably did more of a disservice than a service. You know what I mean? Because had they worked with Laura or Bryce or whatever, don't get me wrong, it was great. It all worked out.
Right.
But I know that the level of detail that they would have given, you know, would have, or Brandy, or, you know, any of the folks on our team. Yeah. It just, I'm working mostly with our sellers and running our business and, you know, things like that. And so I have to remind myself, like, it's okay that they are better at that job than me, because that's what
Everybody
they do.
stays in their lane,
You know,
and knows what they're best at.
Stay in their lane.
Yeah.
They remind me of that too if I try to jump in that lane.
Yeah. It's also good to have those standards though too. Like yeah, you are good. They're better, but you are good, and it still met or exceeded the standards of your client.
Yeah.
So I like the fact that you hold yourself to that personal accountability, that, you know, these people are where they are, and they hold themselves to that standard as well. So,
because that's how the referrals and the business. I mean, when you think about the amount of money you can spend on trying to get leads and things like that, you know, experiences, giving people incredible buying experience, incredible selling experience, you know, those folks then become your megaphone, right? And so at the end of the day, that's what it's about, because those leads that they bring back, they don't cost you anything. Right. You're just doing what you're supposed to do, and actually do above and beyond what you're supposed to do.
Well, I've got a selfless plug for Scott, just because when I started, he was one of the first agents to ever sit down and have a genuine conversation with me. And it was like, so what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I don't have a magazine yet, so I want you to think about this. And he was like, sounds pretty cool, man. Like, you know, and to have that advocacy, and then to see where he's gone from just 5 years ago, it's pretty awesome. So there's a lot of respect from Real Producers End and my end personally, towards you and the business, man.
Well, awesome. It's been awesome to follow what you've been doing, and how the magazine's grown. I mean, your story, you know, you were building it. You were building it. You know,
we were pregnant with our second.
Yeah.
And my wife's like, you just quit your job? And I was like, yeah. She's like, how much you make? And I'm like, nothing.
Yeah. So, you took a risk, and, you know, it's paying off, and it's phenomenal what you're doing. And you come from an approach of, you know, genuinely trying to connect with people and promote agents and things like that. And, you know, I think that's also one of the lessons that I've learned is, you know, when someone calls and reaches out, it's so easy because our schedules are busy to be like, no, dude, I ain't got time to talk to you.
Sure.
You know, or whatever. But we've you know, connected and formed a great friendship. And, you know, I get that from lenders. Like, I have my preferred lenders that I like to work with. But sometimes I will have a lunch, you know, with lenders who call out because it's just one more connection that you might have,
Yep.
that you meet with. You just never know, and that's kind of what I'd rather.
Yeah.
I'd rather have lunch with someone and connect with someone than.
Yeah, and you've helped me out a lot too with some of the connections that I've made with you, and sometimes it doesn't generate business, but it's nice to know that there's an option, like, and it's not like I know the lenders that you work with and they're top notch, and but I love the fact that there's that trust in place and that that camaraderie that you have with your preferred partners to say, yeah, I'm still going to meet with people, like the business is always going to evolve. And I think any business who's not evolving is eventually going to dissolve. So,
or you know what else I've done sometimes is like, I really like this lender I may be meeting with, or whatever, and I'll say, hey, look, this is my preferred person, and I'm going to be loyal to them because they've done a phenomenal job for our clients. Sometimes I'll say, hey, have you thought about this agent? This is who you should be reaching out to, right? And I think that's the thing is when you start doing a lot of business, all of a sudden the phone starts ringing. People want to meet with you. Yeah. To me, it's like trying to identify, because when I got started, the first 3 years, nobody was calling on me.
I don't
you know what I mean?
Scott.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm not wasting my lunch on Scott. That guy just got started. Yeah. But I think if you identify the folks that are kind of up and coming, because they don't have the people calling on them as much. So that sometimes I'll go to a lender and I'll say like, hey, this is my preferred person, but you may want to reach out to this person who I think is on the rise,
Sure.
Because you can identify, you can have a sense of what agents are kind of coming up, just based on, what they're doing, how they act, how they do things. Yeah. It's like Tasha Mag was Rookie of the Year, Coldwell Banker. I use her as an example of anyone that starts on our team. Rookie of the Year, I knew right away. Walt Gibbler, another one, Rookie of the Year, right? I knew right away that they were going to be super successful because every morning when I came in, they were in the office. They treated it like a full-time job. They were there. The hardest part in our business, we're our own boss, right? So there's no one to kind of like hold you accountable and do those things. But I would see them in there every morning doing the work, treating it like a full-time, as if their boss said, hey, you have to be here and you have to work, right? And I think that sometimes that's the challenge. And it's easy, especially to be home. You can do this job from home and things like that, but you're missing out on the conversations, the questions. And once again, that whole thing, people genuinely want to help people. Yeah. When I got in the business, it was the same way. Like Michael Hinckley would take me out I'd go out to lunch with Michael Hinckley, Rick Finn, number of the people that were established in the business who helped me out, grab a mentor. And those are all the things that like help. But if you're not in the office and you're not building connections with those other agents, you're missing out. There's so much gold in there, right? One of the lessons Michael Hinckley taught me that was so good is he's like, Scott, I'm just going to tell you, you're going to have a lot of people that you feel should list with you that don't, especially in the beginning. You're not established as much. And even when you are established, it's going to happen. Maybe they don't, maybe it's a good friend, but they don't want to mix, friendship and business or whatever. So the hardest thing to do is he's like, just don't ruin that relationship. Yeah. Don't ruin that relationship. And he would say, I'd write him it happens to me. I'd write him a handwritten card. Hey, wish you the best of luck, in your sale. And he was like, you'd be surprised. Sometimes they feel guilty and they may send you a referral.
That's awesome.
And so I could go on and on of lessons, but Michael Hinckley was unbelievably good to me. Rick Finn, unbelievably good to me when I got into the business. But if I wasn't in the office every day working, I wouldn't have had those relationships with those guys who wanted to help out.
Well, that was going to be our last question for you. It
Oh,
was kind
sorry.
of like, no, you're fine. Like, what advice would you give to somebody new just starting out? Is it that, or is there something else that you would add to that?
Yeah, I would say, make sure you have a mentor, someone who's been in the business that can help you. There are plenty of people that would want to help you out. So find a mentor is number one. Number two is treat it like a full-time job that you can fill your day with plenty of things and activities to do, right? And if you are not in and doing the work, you will not. It's really easy to just stay at home, and not do the different things that you need to do, right? Because there's no one holding you accountable. So you have to treat it like a full-time job in the office, build those connections. The other thing I will say, one of the mistakes I made when I started is I wanted to have this awesome website, like, kick-ass website, and I'm like spending a bunch of time on this website. Well, I meet with a friend of mine, very successful entrepreneur, Ryan Reibolt, and he says, Scott, I don't even think you have any clients yet. Who the hell is going to go to your website? You need to be connecting with people. That's what you're good at. That's what you do. And so you can go down these paths of all these things, but is building a website at that time for me, it was a little different. There's a lot of lead gen websites now. Before, back when I started, those weren't around as much. But, what are the revenue generating activities, that you can do? Because you can keep yourself busy doing busy work, right? But what are the actual revenue generating activities that you're doing? Connecting with people, whether it's connecting with your sphere, for sale by owners, expireds, there's open houses. There's so many different ways going back to how you can be successful in this business. And you have to figure out, okay, what are my goals? Okay. And then what activities am I going to do to try to hit those goals? And that's what you focus on. It's so hard today because everyone's like, oh, you need to be on LinkedIn. You need to be, and I would run with that too. People be like, you need to be on YouTube. You need to be like, you can't do it all. Yeah. Do one thing, perfect it, do it really, really well. Yep. Then go to the next thing. Keep that first thing going and then do it really, really well. And then add on that next piece. And if you layer those on, but if you try to do everything, it's not gonna work.
That's awesome.
So
that's pretty, that's very insightful. And I think that, your word carries a lot more weight than you probably think it does in this city. And coming from meeting some of the best agents in the city, including yourself, and being around people that are like-minded individuals, Real Producers is referral based, and I had over 25 people refer Scott to be a part of our publication. And it was managers from Sibsey Klein, like it was people all over the place. And I was like, Scott, did you know that? He's like, man, that's truly humbling. Like that's pretty cool to hear. And I was like, you must be doing something right. And and then you get to know him, and the common occurrence is, are you a Bearcat fan? And it's like, yeah, I am, so it's like instant connection, and then, but then he's just a good person. So, there's a lot of people that look up to you from what you're doing, and they're not just on your team. So, I really appreciate you being a part of our podcast, man, and also paving the way, because I talk to a lot of real estate agents that are like, man, I can't believe Scott or Julie or some of these people do the business that they do. It's motivating. So, it's great. It's great to be associated just in that small percentage with you and your business, man. So,
oh man, well, I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And, I don't even know what to say, man. Like
don't say anything, dude. Let's just get a win on Saturday.
Get a win. Get a win on. That's right.
Yeah.
But no, Patrick, it did. I've truly enjoyed getting to meet you over this, and it's awesome what you've built.
This is
over
probably going to be the second most famous podcast behind the Kelsey brothers. So we're super pumped
That's
about
right.
that.
That's right. Oh, new
So,
heights. That's
yeah,
right.
New heights.
And it's official. I guess Travis is
yeah.
is with T Swift, huh? That's
Man.
what I hear.
I can't even go down that path, man. Gosh.
Scott, it's been a real pleasure. I've really enjoyed our conversation, getting to know you a little bit more, and look forward to talking to you again here soon.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. Thanks for
Wish
having
you
me
the
on.
best.